We got the best ball and chain in the world, your ass. Hello, my name is Will, and this is Exploding Helicopter, the podcast wondering just what cocktails Stephen Tobolowsky's drinking. It's funny how a single standout performance can define the trajectory of an actor's career. Take Rutger Hauer. After his mesmerising turn as a soulful android in Blade Runner, he probably expected the doors to more prestigious films to swing open for him. Yet, rather than launching him into the cinematic stratosphere, that iconic role seemed to pigeonhole Hauer, condemning him to a succession of lower-budget sci-fi films as producers, eager to bask in the lingering glow of his Blade Runner fame, repeatedly cast him to lend their projects a touch of cult credibility. All of which brings us to the film we're reviewing on this show, a made-for-TV sci-fi action thriller featuring, you guessed it, Rutger Hauer. And talking of men who are stuck in a rut, doomed to perform the same thankless role over and over again, it's my good friend Nick Rehak. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty great, Will. How are you?
I'm very well as well, and always a pleasure to have you back on here, and looking forward to talking about Wedlock. But I introduced the star of the film that we are reviewing, Rutger Hauer, as an example of an artist who sort of became a bit stuck in a rut, trapped by his own success in many ways. And I've long been fascinated by Rutger Hauer as an example of typecasting, but it made me wonder who you thought of as an actor who, because of one role, has sort of ended up being pigeonholed in that forevermore.
I immediately thought of Stephen Lang. Like I feel, outside of your one-offs like Manhunter or something like that, he's always played, which was early on enough in his career, but kind of once he hits a spot, it's like the early 90s, all of a sudden it's just all military, all cop, all very cut and dry, like just to by the numbers kind of guy. We don't get to really see any kind of like fun or whimsy or anything out of the ordinary out of the guy. It's always just when you see him, you know the character that you're going to get, and I feel like they really double and even triple down on it when you get to the Avatar series.
Yeah,
you know, and you get a little bit more physicality of a role when you get to something. Don't Breathe, right? It's essentially the same character. He's just not talking as much.
He's just pretending he can't see.
Exactly. And then something like Sisu, but it's all just very, just much that same kind of guy over and over and over again. And it's, you kind of wish that he had the chance to kind of flex that muscle and do something a little bit different, anything,
Well, it's kind of interesting because he sort of gets into that groove because I think we spoke about him before, and he seemed to sort of undergo a real physical transformation in his career, because in Manhunter he's got that sort of wild curly hair, and he's kind of playing a bit of a I don't know. It's just like he's not the sort of same stern, really ultra serious character that we get.
Right, he's kind of smarmy and worm-like.
Yeah,
almost.
But he kind of like got very jacked at some point,
yeah.
And that seems to have really sort of absolutely boxed him into the types of roles that you were talking about.
Yeah, and it's almost becomes like maybe not seemingly out of nowhere, but all of a sudden it's just, like I said, you just know the role that he's going to be, and you can almost predict some of the dialogue he's going to say, or if they just approach him with that in mind, or if they're writing a character like, oh, let's go for a Stephen Lang type, like you can even start to see some of those creeping up. And he's a solid actor, don't get me wrong. It's not like he's phoning it in, but I would imagine there's a part of him that's like, oh, another general, oh, another detective, like, oh, this guy, he's just mean, like just something a little bit different for him.
Yeah, we want to see him in a screwball comedy, don't we?
Exactly.
Kind of yucking it up.
Yeah,
let's get mouthfuls of rapid fire dialogue.
Oh my gosh, it'd be great to see him do like a Liam Neeson and Naked Gun type turn. Just this older fella, but he's just funny. But maybe that's what he likes. Maybe that's his comfort. Maybe he on the side does stage productions and does more like 12th Night type stuff, but on the big screen, no, let's just be another let's be a general this time. Oh, we'll go back in time and I'll be the voice of George Washington, or I'll be, a doctor or something. But even then, like, he just stern all the time. Surprised he's not more wrinkled. You know what I mean? Just from how stern he is.
Okay, I think it's time to get stuck into Wedlock, so let's listen to a trailer with not nearly enough Trailer Man voiceover.
Trapped in a prison of the future.
Each one of these collars is electronically linked to another prisoner's collar.
Betrayed by a woman of his past.
If they're ever separated by more than 100 yards...
Frank Warren is wired to explode.
We like to refer to it as Wedlock.
I know who your Wedlock partner is.
You're my Wedlock partner! Oh, no!
We gotta jump.
No, wait.
Tracy! Wait for me!
So where is he now?
Don't shoot, we're coming out! What the hell's going on here?
The real question is he going to lead us to the diamonds?
Who the hell was shooting at the police back there? Follow it, boss! Step on it! Come on! I panicked after the job. Dropped the diamonds off at my friend's place. Figured I could pick them up later. And then I got shot. That's too bad. Tracy!
Frank!
Come on!
Sorry, honey, but I need it for the money. Frank? If that collar doesn't kill you, I will.
Wedlock, also known as Deadlock, is a 1991 sci-fi action thriller in which Frank Warren, a skilled electronics expert and jewel thief, is betrayed by his fiancée Noelle and best friend Sam after a multi-million-dollar diamond heist. Frank hides the diamonds before he's caught, and his partner's attempts to retrieve them fail because only he knows the location. Frank is sent to Camp Holiday, a futuristic experimental prison with no bars or fences. Instead, inmates wear explosive electronic collars called wedlocks, each paired to another prisoner. Neither partner knows who their match is, and if they are separated by more than 100 yards, both collars detonate. Frank eventually discovers his collar partner is Tracy Riggs, a fellow inmate who claims she was wrongly convicted. When Sam and Noelle attempt to kidnap Frank to recover the diamonds, chaos erupts, and Frank and Tracy use the opportunity to escape, still tethered by their lethal collars. Pursued by the authorities and by Frank's treacherous former partners, they must stay within range of each other while racing to recover the hidden diamonds. In the cast, we have Mimi Rogers, Joan Chen, James Remar, Stephen Tobolowsky, and Danny Trejo. The film was directed by Teague, he's had a very interesting career. He's made a couple of cult horror films, namely Alligator and Cujo. He then directed The Jewel of the Nile, a big adventure comedy with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. Now, you would have thought that would have been the launch pad for his career, but he then made the infamous, the notorious Navy SEALs, after which his career was spent making TV movies. That's appropriate, as Wedlock was released as a TV movie on HBO in December 1991. Wedlock has a user rating on IMDb of 5.9 out of 10 and a user rating on Letterboxd of 2.9 out of 5. Somewhat bizarrely, there was a sequel/remake of this film. In 1995, Deadlock 2, also known as Deadlocked Escape from Zone 14, was released. It has an almost identical plot to Wedlock/Deadlock and starred Isaiah Morales and Nia Peoples. So, with all of that out of the way, Nick, what did you make of Wedlock?
I surprised myself at how much I liked and enjoyed this movie. I had so much fun watching it, and I found myself getting frustrated because of how much better it could have been with with a much better script and maybe some better casting. This film could be like one of those massive underrated gems where you're like, I don't know about it, and you watch it and you're like, wow, this was great. Like, I it's almost to the point where I'm watching it and I'm like, man, this is kind of fun. And I'm like, wait, why am I watching this again? Oh yeah, there's an exploding helicopter in here somewhere. Like I was so into it, flaws and all. And I was really just taken aback at how much I enjoyed the movie.
Oh, well, I'm really pleased to hear that, because this is a movie that I really enjoyed watching, and I did worry a little bit as to whether you would have a similar experience with it, because, as you say, it definitely has some flaws. There are some weaknesses to this, but there's actually like a lot of good stuff within this. I think there's a neat hook for this film. It's very briskly paced. There's some good twists and turns in the story. I mean, you knocked the script, but I actually think there's quite a bit of wit in the script for it, and there are some good actors here. I mean, you know, obviously Rutger Hauer is the biggest name here, but you know, James Remar is always good. Stephen Tobolowsky is always good value. Like Joan Chen knows, you know, she knows what she's doing on screen. Like Mimi Rogers, you know, she's a real pro. So it's a kind of a good an example of like this sort of period where I think TV movies today got a very bad rap, but you go back 30, 40 years, actually, you know, TV movies were often the centerpieces of a TV channel's, you know, programming on a particular night or evening, and they put, you know, proper effort and resources into those things, and I think you see a lot of that on screen here in this film.
I agree with you for the most part, but I think for me, it's just the script feels so uneven at times, in a sense of like just. And maybe it's the delivery of the dialogue, and there could have been like a better casting somewhere. But if you take a look, like early on in the film, there's an exchange between Rutger Hauer's character, who becomes Magenta, because in this place, this is one of the most absurd scenes in the whole film. In this place, like there's I guess a combination employee / prisoner that works there. And he says to everybody, when you get here, you don't use your real names anymore. You only go by color. Okay, I'm thinking it's going to be like Reservoir Dogs, right? Mr. Orange, Blue, Brown, so on and so forth. But immediately, he starts with Cardinal, Amber, and Lime. And I'm like, what kind of colors are we? Okay, this is like, what are we going to have, taupe next? But he calls Rutger Hauer Magenta, right? So you have Magenta and the Warden having this conversation, and the Warden is talking about getting butt slammed by Bubba, and then saying something like, your friend's banging your fiance. But then he turns it around and he's like, you know, he's essentially promising him difficult time if you F with me, right? Like all of a sudden they want to throw in this language, and it feels almost like a middle schooler or high schooler that just learned how to like start swearing, because out of nowhere, like a series of swears will come through. I don't mind it, but it just feels so like choppy and unnatural. And then it like kind of makes the script feel a little juvenile, and then you have some of the performances come through, and they're trying to do their best with some of the lines. I don't know if it's a delivery thing. I don't know if it's just how it was written kind of thing. But some of the script just feels frustrating to me because of like just I guess maybe the pacing of the words, or it just something like that just feels off throughout the whole script. And it feels like if you'd have run over it once or twice more and polished up one or two sections, like I said, you'd have that like really big underrated gem, because I really like Stephen Tobolowsky. So anything he's in, I'm already like biased and want to be a fan of. And I dug his performance, but I feel like he could have done something just a little more with the character based on like some adjustments to the script.
Well, Stephen Tobolowsky plays the prison warden in this futuristic prison. You mentioned that you enjoy seeing him on screen. Yeah, did you enjoy him here? And, you know, did he make a good prison warden for you? Because he's kind of not the most immediate person you would expect to cast as a prison warden.
No, but I think it works, because
Definitely,
I think
yeah.
he's coming at it not as like your traditional prison warden type with like sunglasses, thick Southern accent, and you know what I mean, like a toothpick hanging out of his mouth, like a Michael Parks type or something like that. I think he comes at it from like a businessman, or like kind of, for lack of a better phrase, like kind of a corporate douche about it, because that's what he wants to do, and he's doing what he thinks is supposed to be punishment, and what he thinks is supposed to be like tough and badass and stuff. Like they talk about if you mess up, you go into the floaters, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm curious as to what this floaters thing is, and all it is a sensory deprivation tank. And I'm like, okay, you could have come up with something a little bit more, or just call it what it is. But instead you have this guy that's like trying to make it seem like cool and dangerous, and I think that adds to his character, and we get that much more out of it. So I really liked what he brought with the character and how he presented him. Like, better than what I thought I was going to be honest.
Well, you segued into a part of the film that I wanted to talk about, which was, I mean, this movie, it's kind of split into two parts. It starts off as a prison movie, and then it becomes a chase movie after they escape. And yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the prison movie section because, we get an interesting view of a futuristic prison here. We've got the explosive collars. We have this strange kind of happy hour where inmates are free to have sex with one another, and then we have these immersion tanks for torturing prisoners. So I was intrigued by some of these sort of ideas of what might go on in a futuristic prison, and I wondered what you made of them, because I mean, let's talk a little bit more about the immersion tanks here. I guess the idea is that it is a sensory deprivation tank, but I don't know whether it's a budget thing. But it's just basically, it just looks like somebody's being forced to sort of lie in a coffin full of water, and then they have the lid closed on them for a few days. There's no real sort of attempt to sort of disorientate them in the sort of classic sense of a deprivation tank there.
Yeah, you really lose some of that visual magic, and I think it comes across as like kind of silly and doesn't hit as hard, because if you say you're going to solitary confinement, right? If you look at a film like Bronson and you have Tom Hardy's character like pacing in a cell and how that camera works, you could see the passage of time. You could see kind of the gears turning in his head, and you could see like, okay, this person is losing their mind, or they have lost their mind, or you can just kind of see and sense, and it's tactile and it feels real, where instead you just have an angle of like an empty box, and then not an empty box per se, but then you open the lid for a couple puns, and then you close the door, and it's we fade or cut to something else. You don't really understand the passage of time. You don't really see any effect on the character outside of like what they occasionally look like, but it doesn't have that same kind of oomph and impact, I think, as your traditional solitary confinement. I like the approach and trying something different. I definitely appreciate that, but I think there's a way to do it a little more creatively visually, because there are some fun like visual moments in this film. It's well shot. It's not like it's stationary or just kind of ho-hum. There is some excitement there from the camera. We just don't get it here.
What did you make of this magic hour idea where for a certain part of the day prisoners are free to have sex with one another? I mean, I was thinking about it seems to work very nicely within this prison, but I was thinking that in a real world prison it would work as smoothly as this. I just think it would be absolute carnage.
It'd be Caligula. It would be just pure insanity. I don't think any work would get done. They wouldn't build whatever water filters they're trying to build. It would just be people with diseases all the time.
And it'd be a lot less consensual than how it is presented in this film.
Massively not as consensual. Like I think this is one of those like it's HBO, so let's get a little steamy kind of thing and kind of push that envelope a little bit. And even then, they don't really push it a whole lot. Like it's not too graphic or what have you.
No.
But it felt a little cheesy, and to me is kind of just like a gimmick to. I don't know. I feel like that's where I mean the whole thing. There's some unbelievability about it, sure, but I feel like that oddly enough that was the most unbelievable part, where I was like, that would never happen, and kind of checked out for a little bit. I was like, well, let's get back to like the real part of like trying to escape and everything like that. I think in the real world, though, like you said, it wouldn't work, and it would be very much not consensual at all, much like it is now. Like it would be not great.
I've kind of danced all over the shop with this discussion, and I wanted to sort of, I guess, circle back to something that's more central to this film, which is really like the hook of the movie. So you have these paired fugitives that have to stay together because of these explosive collars, and I guess it's a variant on an idea that we've seen in other movies in the past, you know, perhaps most famously the Defiant ones with Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier, where they're simply handcuffed together and they're trying to escape. And you've seen, kind of saw a remake of that in the 1970s with Pam Grier, Black Mama, White Mama. What did you make of the hook, I guess, of this film with these two prisoners on the run who are kind of stuck with one another?
I liked the hook. I thought that was great. I think it makes it that much more creative and causes that much more creative thought to put behind in situations and what you would do. And it adds to the suspense of it and what's going on. There's a scene in the film where one character is taken down an elevator and the other one's got to figure out a way real quick how to catch up and get down there. And it kind of gets you drawn into the film and excited, and you're paying attention more, and you're seeing, like, are they staying within the 100 yards? Are they trying to fidget with it? Then it becomes the device itself. Like, is he being serious? Are they going to put it to the test? Are we going to get to see heads explode? You know, there's so many different avenues it opens up. And I think the script was respectful of the concept and didn't come up with anything too ridiculous and over the top to kind of like circumvent any part of it, or any kind of, you know, oh, you just kind of have to chalk that up as movie magic or a plot hole or anything like that. Like they really stuck to it, and I appreciated that. And I kind of wish they would have explored that concept more. Like if two guys got into a fight, outside of our main characters, you know, side characters or something, like how do they resolve it based on not knowing who they're partnered with, or is there a fight? You know, just let me see more of the conflict resolution side of things and explore that a little bit more.
Because, I mean, it does open up the possibility, these explosive collars, for the ideas of lots of exploding heads. And I did find myself being a little bit disappointed by that aspect of the film. And we get some pretty decent head explosions right at the beginning of the movie. But after that, like, that's it, kind of done. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's something you can just have too much of. But, you know, I felt like I wanted some more exploding heads in this movie.
I definitely wanted more exploding heads. You can't have enough, let's be honest. I think what we got was fun, but you kind of want to see some more. I want to see somebody making a mistake, or, you know, just offhandedly, and it shows how much more careful you have to be, or somebody that's fidgeting with it, or something like other things that make you think, oh, you could probably get rid of it that way. Like, nope, this causes an issue, that causes an issue. Like, you know, they talk about this blue line. If you don't go past it, you're fine. I wanted to see a little more experimentation, maybe around that blue line, or what that meant, or what this meant. Like, I think they could have pushed it a little bit more and gone a little more like visceral, especially with it being like an HBO thing. Like, they can kind of push that boundary a little bit and still get away with it and still have it look good. And the exploding heads that we did get, I felt like they were pretty good effects wise. Like, it wasn't so gory and egregious. It felt realistic. It also didn't come across as like kind of cheesy or campy or anything. So I think they kind of towed that line, and the ones they had worked. So maybe that's where the budget went. They're like, look, we got it in the budget for two.
What did you make of the odd couple chemistry or dynamic between Rutger Hauer and Mimi Rogers?
It didn't work for me. I feel like Mimi Rogers was great. She sold it, and it was wonderful. And even some of the reveals we get along the way, like, her character was really, really well, like, just rounded, and she just did a great job. But for me, the rough part is Rutger Hauer. To me, he just felt like emotionless. It felt like he was just, someone had told him the line, and then he repeated it. Like, I felt like so he had a piece in his ear. Someone would say the sentence, and then he would say it. I didn't feel the emotion behind it. Some of the jokes, for me, they didn't land just because of like the chemistry and the delivery from Rutger Hauer's character. Like his delivery on some of the things, I just didn't get any emotion. He just felt so robotic and emotionless to me. And if he's a guy that, is going through all these things, he went through this betrayal by his, supposed fiance and his friend. He goes through all these things. He should be a little more hardened, and instead he comes across as like kind of a bumbling soft guy, for lack of a better phrase. And if he's truly impacted, by this betrayal and stuff, like we should see that and we should feel it. And we don't get that. Instead, we just get a guy that feels very one note. Even when he meets up with, I think the character's name was Jasper, his friend later on in the film. Yeah. Even when he meets up with that character, we really don't see much of a change in him. He smiles a little bit more, sure, but we don't really get that energy and excitement that one would get with hanging out with a friend. Like, if I'm going through what I'm going through and all of a sudden you and I cross paths, I'd be so jazzed, and I would be very more like excited about what's going on, despite, what's happening with, this collar around my neck. But it just, I don't know. I felt like he was kind of the weak link. It's no Bird on Wire. You know what I mean? It's not, we're not getting that type of, but I feel like we could. I feel like with the right actors in place with those two roles, not saying, Mimi Rogers was the issue, but I feel like if we had somebody else in that role, it could have sent it or taken it to that next level and been that much more like exciting. You could do a lot with this role, and I feel like Rutger just didn't.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more positive on Rutger Hauer's performance in this film than you are. I actually think that his performance, he's kind of underplaying his performance a bit, and he's portraying his character as a sort of a little bit more sort of weary, and he has. I actually enjoy his line in sardonic one-liners that he has within this film. He has quite a lot of witty one-liners in this film, and so for me, I think he's pretty good. I agree with you. I think Mimi Rogers is great in this film. She's got, she's playing this very spiky, this very spunky character, and yeah, she's got some great moments within this film where she's like, where she hustles that crystal shop owner for some cash, and where she sort of forces Rutger Hauer's hand and jumps off that cliff and sort of leaves him, and all the stuff at the wedding. Like, I thought, really sort of enjoyed all that. I do, but there is something about, and I think she's really good. I think for me, I thought Rutger Hauer is good, but they just don't quite gel together, and that becomes a real problem with the whole love angle thing, because there's just none of that chemistry. There's no foundation to that really, either in the script and certainly not in any of the chemistry that they have on screen there. I did think one thing about Rutger Hauer in his performance here, and maybe it's less his performance and maybe it's more his wardrobe, was that I kind of enjoyed. They seem to be trying to have some fun with his character, because throughout this whole film, he's in a really crazy array of outfits. So he's sort of, one point he's dressed like a Russian Orthodox priest. Then he's in his sort of denim prison duds. He's dressed up as a police officer somewhere else. Then later on, he's dressed in something that I think they're meant like African robes, because they steal some luggage from someone. And then he's wearing what I can only describe as Steven Seagal's coat at one point in this film.
Yeah. That's a really good. It really does.
I mean, it's like something he would wear in one of his sort of later movies. But
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Sorry, that coat was so ridiculous, because there's all of these mixed match of patterns and then just these random blazes of color coming through. I feel like if the neck of it was a little furrier or had more like kind of animal fur, that's Steven Seagal all the way. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be looking at the exploding helicopter action.
Rutger Hauer.
Who are you? You're an outsider.
In an epic science fiction thriller.
They want the world all to themselves.
In a powerful new vision of our future.
The Roms and the droids got here just about the same time, and then the killing started.
when mankind faces extinction.
Track down even the slightest trace of a human being.
I've killed your kind before.
You need to discuss your behavior.
The only one who can save us
First, I'm gonna kill you. My mind.
isn't human at all.
You are a machine. You are Omega Doom.
Who died and made you God?
You did.
Rutger Hauer. Omega Doom.
Very persuasive.
We're back, and now we're looking at the exploding helicopter action. This occurs at the climax of the film. After various crosses and double crosses, our heroes are about to be bumped off by Tobolowsky and Joan Chen, who are all set to escape with the money. With his suitcase of swag, Tobolowsky gets on board his helicopter to fly off, while Joan Chen cannot resist making a final few gloating comments to her former fiancé Rutger Hauer. But as we've seen, it's Hauer and Rogers who are set to have the last laugh, as the blonde Dutchman has slipped the neck collar explosives into the villain's swag. Thinking that she's about to blow up our heroes, Joan Chen presses the button on a detonator and succeeds only in blowing up herself, Stephen Tobolowsky, and the helicopter he's just taken off in. Nick, what did you make of the exploding helicopter action?
I was left disappointed because there's this really awkward build-up where she's getting ready to push the button and they stand in this really weird pose. And I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden, here comes this fireball, and I'm like, here we go. And then that's just kind of it. Exit stage left. All of a sudden, the copter's just gone. And I was kind of hoping for something a little bit like bigger of a bang, or maybe I feel like the last couple films that we've discussed, we've seen like the helicopter falling from the sky. Like, even though it might have been reused footage, they could have done something like that. They could have done a little bit more with the helicopter. Maybe, again, the budget went to the exploding heads. But I wanted to see a little bit more. I wanted a bigger bang.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we really needed a bigger bang. And it's really somewhat bizarre that they didn't provide one. I mean, this is the climax of the movie. You'd think that they would know, okay, we need to kind of give this film a decent finale, and we need to have a decent fireball here. And it's just really, it's over so quickly, it's over so briefly, it's not very impressive, and it just is it's all too brief. It just is a bit of a damp squib to end this film on. And I mean, I do think that this film clearly didn't have the biggest budget. I think for the most part, the film does a good job of not making that seem too obvious. I think it's actually sort of quite clever in many aspects of how it sort of uses its money. But they really should have saved a few quid somewhere along the line to make sure that they gave this helicopter the funeral it really deserved at the end of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice looking flame. Don't get me wrong. You can tell that's a real deal flame coming out of there. It's not some kind of cheap After Effect post-production. No, the flame is coming. We just don't get the rest of it. We just don't get the explosion, and it's just kind of like cut to, and then it's like the movie just kind of ends. All of a sudden, it's like, here you go, and we're done. Like someone let the air out of a balloon. We hear it and we see it, but it's over as soon as it starts. Let's go.
Yeah. In terms of the exploding helicopter action that we get in this film, as I mentioned in the introduction of this film, we do get to, Danny Trejo does appear briefly in this film. Unsurprisingly enough, he is one of the prisoners in the prison at the beginning of the film, and he's a regular face that we see in films with exploding helicopters. He has been in 6 films with an exploding helicopter. In terms of the uniqueness of the exploding helicopter that we get here, actually, there's a very similar one to what we get here in a 2007 film called The Condemned, which is a kind of Most Dangerous Game variant. And so in that film, we have people who are shanghaied into sort of trying to escape from this island whilst being hunted, and they all have explosive ankle collars on them to sort of try and make sure that they behave appropriately. And the end of that film, features somebody repurposing their ankle explosive as a bomb in order to blow up the helicopter that's being used by the villains in a very similar way to how Rutger Hauer engineers the exploding helicopter here. So this does set a precedent which that film follows. And so, yes, it's not unique, but certainly very rare.
And the nice thing is, too, it fits within his character because he does bring up a couple times that he's an electric engineer. He knows and understands these kinds of things. So it's not just one of those, like, how did he figure that out kind of thing. Like, it stays within the plausibility of not just, like, the concept of their collars and everything, but also, like, of the characters and staying true, like, to what's going on. And I really appreciate that.
Well, there you go. Wedlock. It's a fun little film that you can definitely enjoy. Currently streaming in the UK if you want to check it out. Right, well, I think that just about wraps things up for this show. Nick, before I defuse your collar, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Just the usual, rabbitholepodcasts.com. You can find me over on 2 different programs, Lyrical Innuendo with Bubba Wheat and Play MST for Me with myself and Jason Soto.
As always, don't forget to check out the Exploding Helicopter website at explodinghelicopter.com for more reviews and information about helicopter explosions in films. If you can help spread the word about what we do by rating, reviewing, or reposting, we'd be very grateful. We'll be back soon, but until then, what should people do, Nick?
Keep watching the skies for those exploding helicopters. This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
From this point on, you cease to have a name. You will be referred to by your color. Anybody using their real name gets a day in the floaters. Okay, listen up and remember your colors, because I'm only going to go through this once. Cardinal, amber, lime, ivory.
I had a pair of those. No joke.
Magenta!